Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Rob here. Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. Hope everyone's doing good out there. So this week on the podcast, we're changing some things up. We're not having our typical, one episode where we, go into entertainment and sports. This time we're going to be doing two standalone episodes. This is going to be our entertainment-based one, and then following this one, we will be releasing a sports-based episode as well. In this entertainment-based episode, we'll be talking about the movie Ella McCay, which came out in theaters last week on Thursday. I was able to see it. And, I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to make sure to talk about it here on the podcast. Before we get into this Ella McCay episode, make sure to keep up with us on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And yeah, with all that said, let's get into this entertainment based episode as we talk about the brand new movie Ella McCay. All right, guys, now let's get into Ella McCay. So as I said, the movie came out last Thursday, so it's still playing in theaters right now, so make sure to go check it out. I highly recommend it. So yeah, and also a warning for those of you who haven't watched Ella McCay, there may be some spoilers, in this episode here about the movie. So just wanted to give that out here in the beginning just in case some of you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to be spoiled. Like, for example, before I get into the movie, I literally learned about the movie last Thursday afternoon, and I decided to go see it on Thursday night. So I had literally no prior knowledge. I just literally read about it quickly online. I saw like a quick little trailer. I saw that Jamie Lee Curtis was in it, and other than that, I didn't really know much about the story overall. So just wanted to give a little spoiler warning just in case we give out some spoilers here on this episode. So yeah, with that said, so the movie starts off with Ella McCay when she's in high school, and the first scene of the whole movie, we see that Ella's father cheated on her mother with someone he worked with. And basically, we see Ella, as anyone would be, we see her, obviously mad about the situation, not happy with it. We see her kind of go off on her dad and her mom. And then we also see someone in there who's played by Jamie Lee Curtis, which is Ellen, who is the aunt, right, of Ella. And we see that Helen looks like a proud aunt when Ella's talking, or it's kind of scolding her father in a way. And then after that scene, we see another scene where Ella's mom tells her that her and her father want to move to California to start like a new chapter, to get away from this whole cheating scandal. And then basically Ella's like, no matter what, it's gonna be the same thing over and over again, no matter where we go. And then at the same time, Ella's close to, graduating high school, so she doesn't want to leave the school she's been part of already for a couple years. So then they decide that Ella's gonna stay home and move in with her aunt Helen, who, as I said, is played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And another character in the movie is Casey, who's the little brother of Ella. So Ella and Casey are staying with their aunt Helen, and their parents are moving to California to quote unquote, start a new chapter to kind of get away from the whole cheating scandal type of thing. Then we see, that the next scene kind of comes, and it's a heartbreaking scene. It's a funeral. We see that, Ella and Casey's mother passed away, and their mother was played by Rebecca Haw. Her name is Claire McKay in the movie. But yeah, we see that Claire passes away due to cancer. And then at the funeral, we see a lady come in. There's a scene where it's Aunt Helen, with Ella, and then Casey. We see a woman come in and greet um, Eddie, who's the father of Ella and Casey, and Eddie's played by Woody Harrelson. We see a lady come in and greet, Woody Harrelson's character, and she like kind of grabs his butt. So then they kind of figure out, oh, that's another one that he cheated on mom with. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of early on. We kind of see the things that these two kids are going through, and thankfully, they have the Aunt Helen, who's at least, a stable adult in their life who's able to kind of help them out in a way, rather than being raised by their dad, who's, always cheating on their mother, and then unfortunately, them losing their mother. So, we see that early on, these two, yeah, kids in a way, being a high schooler, then Casey being a little boy, we see, the hardships that they've had to deal with at such a, early age. And then eventually after those like early scenes or early life moments of Ella and Casey, we move on into the future, and we see that Ella is working in politics, and she's a lieutenant governor of the state, where she was born and raised in. She's still living with Aunt Helen. And then we notice though that Casey isn't living with them. So, that's kind of a mystery at first. We really don't know where Casey's at. But we do see that Ella is a governor, like I said, of her home state. Then eventually the governor of that state, Governor Bill, played by Albert Brooks, he's eventually promoted into the presidential administration in some sort of like secretary type of role. So then therefore the lieutenant government, which is Ella, she gets promoted to the governor. She becomes, the first woman governor of the state. And, her aunt Helen is like super proud of her. And, we see the kind of behind the scenes that she has to deal with in the political world. We see that Ella's not your typical politician. She's actually, trying to make a difference and trying to make a change in the world and help the community and help, the place where she's been born and raised in. She's not, trying to get any political gain or wealth behind the scenes from big time donors or anything like that. But unfortunately, we see that Governor Bill and some other established politicians in the movie are more focused on, pleasing their donors rather than actually helping the people that elected them into their powerful roles in the government where they're at right now. But thankfully, Ella's like that one person who's trying to really make a change. And throughout this whole story as well, we see that Ella is in a relationship with a guy she met while she was in high school. The character's name is Ryan, and he's played by Jack Lowden. So yeah, Ryan and Ella, they're basically high school sweethearts. And then we see, even as Ella's, older now, her and Ryan ended up getting married. And something throughout this whole time from high school to now that we notice is that Aunt Helen has never really been a huge fan of Ryan. She's kind of felt that Ryan's kind of taking advantage of Ella in a way. And then ultimately, to kind of summarize that relationship quickly, right after Ella becomes governor, her and Ryan kind of split up because Ryan feels that he deserves like a higher position or some sort of role for some reason in the government, which absolutely makes no sense because he hasn't earned his way in there. He has nothing to do with politics, so he just feels that because his wife is a governor, that he like now should be named to some high position role, and he wants to live in a governor's mansion. And you could kind of tell that Ryan's trying to kind of take advantage of the situation rather than actually being a loving and supporting husband to Ella. And then also part of that story, we see there's a scene where Ryan's talking to his parents, and we kind of see that his mother is the one pushing him to, kind of pushing him away from Ella in a way. And we see that, she's the one that tells him that he should be given some sort of higher role because he's married to the governor. And then we see that his father is treated very poorly by his mother. So then we kind of see Ryan treat Ella the way that his mother's always treated his father. To kind of summarize that little backstory there. And then in terms of Casey, right, the brother, as I said, like as we transition from that high school period into like adult life now for Ella. Like I said, we see that Casey's no longer living with Ella or Aunt Helen. Then eventually we see that Casey, he doesn't show up to Ella's big kind of inauguration type of day as a governor of the state. So then she decides to go visit him, and we see that he lives like in a small little apartment, and it seems as if he's some sort of like gamer type of thing, or he works like online in a way. And we see that he's kind of socially awkward. We see like garbage bags of clothes and food thrown around his apartment, so you could kind of tell that or you could assume that the things that kind of happened early in his life affected him mentally. And we could kind of see that he's going through some sort of depression in a way. And then, we later learn that he actually is heartbroken. And that's why he's so like depressed. And we learned that he hadn't gone out of his house in 13 months. He's only been working online. And then we find out that he's not a gamer. He's actually working, and he makes around, I think it was like $1 or $2 million a year. And what he does is give sports betting advice to different, gamblers around the world. And we see that eventually Casey explains to Ella what happened with his ex-girlfriend and how he opened up to her and kind of let her know that he wanted to get married, and she kind of stayed silent. And then after that, Casey decided to change his phone number because he didn't want to keep living with the fact that his ex-girlfriend would never call him back. Then eventually we see Casey decide to call his ex-girlfriend. The character's name is Susan, played by Aya Adibri, which is a huge star right now. From The Bear. She's been on Saturday Night Live. She's a hot name right now in Hollywood. She did a great job in her role as Susan. But we see Susan and Casey, rekindle in a way. We see Susan invite Casey over to her place, and he kind of explains to her everything he's gone through the 13 months since they parted ways, I guess you could call it. And then he reveals to her that he changed his phone number, and she lets him know that she called him a bunch of times, but obviously she didn't know that that he changed his phone number. So then he's a little more happy being that knowing that she actually did call him while they were broken up. So eventually they leave her apartment and they go have dinner in like some sort of diner. And then he asks if they could be like boyfriend and girlfriend again. She says yes. So that little story kind of wraps up like really nicely in comparison to how we see Casey first in his adult life. How he looks depressed and he hasn't gone out in 13 months and he's kind of you know, I don't know. You could tell he's kind of not sleeping and he's not really socializing with anyone. And then we see his happy, happily ever after kind of ending, with Susan in a way. So that was cool. Then they'll go back to Ella. So go back to her relationship with Ryan. That was his name, right? Yeah, Ryan. So we see Ella and Ryan, like I said, they kind of get a divorce, as soon as she becomes governor because Ryan starts acting out, like I said. And then another little love story in a way, which is not quote unquote an official love story because they never really say their feelings towards one another. But basically, Ella's head of security throughout her whole political career. It's this guy named Nash. He's called Trooper Nash. He's like a state trooper that works to, protect and drive her everywhere. And he's played by Kamel Nanjiani. I've seen his face a lot of times. He's a stand-up comic. This is the first time I see him, in a movie or a show. And I thought Kamel did a hell of a job as a Trooper Nash. So congratulations to him. But yeah, so basically we see the whole time this underlying love story in a way. And when the movie ends, we never see them say they have feelings for one another, but we could tell throughout the whole movie that Trooper Nash is 100% in love with Ella McCay. And then as soon as Ella and Ryan kind of split, we kind of see there's kind of glimpses here and there that Ella may be feeling some sort of love romantically in a way for Trooper Nash as well. But the movie ends and they never really tell each other that. So, I'm hoping that there's a sequel because the way the movie ends is like, and maybe, I could see like the next scene after the final scene of this first movie being them on their first date, or maybe Trooper Nash revealing his true feelings towards Ella McCay in a way, and then them getting together. Maybe Ella, after being governor, running for president, trying to be the first woman president. Some sort of story like that would be super nice for the sequel. But yeah, guys, those are like my the things I kind of wanted to go over in terms of talking about Ella McCay. I want to shout out Ella Mackey, who plays Ella McCay. This was her first American movie. I didn't know that right before I recorded this. I saw an interview that James Brooks, the director of the movie, he did saying that, yeah, this was Emma Mackey's first American movie. And that was mind blowing to me because instantly, literally 5 minutes into the movie, I was already like, wow, this girl's an absolute superstar. So shout out to Emma Mackey. I looked her up after seeing the movie. I saw she's in a couple series here and there. She's gonna be in a big project next year with Greta Gerwig. So her name's gonna be up there now. You're gonna start seeing her in more films coming her way. She was part of that show Sex Education on Netflix. I've never seen it, but I know it's like a big time show. It has a lot of fans. So now it's not shocking, that she was so good in this movie. But the fact that it was her first movie, she was the star of it, and she was an absolute powerhouse. I completely bought in. It felt like Ella McCay was an actual person. So when you see those type of actors that actually, bring you in and make you feel like this is real life, yeah, that's when you know they're extra special. And I think Emma Mackey, this is just the start to a incredible and successful career coming her way. And then Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays Aunt Helen, like I said, she has always done an amazing job, since I was little. She's always been such an amazing actress, right? But as I've grown older, I've noticed like something extra special about her that I didn't know early on is that she's so versatile, right? We know her from the Halloween movies, which of course is horror. We know her from the Freaky Friday movies, which of course is like a comedy. A Christmas with the Cranks, a comedy as well. And then you see her in this one as Aunt Helen. She's funny as always, right? Jamie Lee Curtis. But we also see her serious side, and she always makes you feel like her characters are real people as well. So shout out to Jamie Lee Curtis, Emma Mackey, the two stars of this film. They did a tremendous job overall. And also shout out to Woody Harrelson, who plays Eddie, who plays Ella's dad. I'm a big fan of the show Cheers, and Woody Harrelson, he got his start really, or he rose to stardom on the show Cheers, halfway through the series, and he did an amazing job on that show as Woody. So, overall, I loved Ella McCay, and it's such a great movie. So shout out to everyone part of making it, whether they're on the cast or crew. They all did a tremendous job. So make sure to go check it out. It's out now in theaters. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts on Ella McCay. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this Ella McCay episode. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts on this amazing movie. Once again, make sure to go check it out. It's playing in theaters right now, and it's a incredible, movie. I hope I intrigued some of you who didn't really know about it. I hope this episode makes you want to go see it. If you have seen it already and you want to give me your thoughts, and you're watching here on YouTube, make sure to drop your comments down here below. And now you can reach out to us via Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. Follow us on there as well. We really appreciate it. Once again, please make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Until next time, everyone, take care.